What is up, my peeps? Joshua Smithy with another GSD Mode Podcast interview, where every single week we interview top entrepreneurs, top real estate agents, top real estate professionals, and just those that are out there kicking ass and dominating their space. These are people choosing to not live a life of mediocrity, but instead to go out there and create big, amazing, epic lives for themselves, for their families, as well as have a big impact on others. And that's why they choose to take their time out of their busy days and busy weeks to share all their brilliance with us. So you guys got another rock star, amazing, badass guest on the show. Dude, I've been really excited to have on the show for a long time. This is a guy, he didn't know this until we started jamming before we hit the record button here. But this is a dude that's inspired me a lot throughout my career. You know, when I first got into the business, 2005, you know, market's just booming, a lot of traditional business. But dude, it switched fast and on a dime. And next thing we know, it's all REO and short sale and trying to figure all this stuff out. And our guest was like the king, you know, right? King of short sales, king, you know, and he put on this a big event up in Vegas that I attended. And it was a game changer for me and allowed me to go out there, become a top REO and short sale agent, put me on the right path. And so our guest is not just one of the top real estate agents, and I'll cover all that here in a second, but something that's also had a massive impact on my career in life. And you didn't know that until today, but so something I've been really excited to get on the show. So our guest, you guys, was a real estate agent himself personally for just over 20 years. Mega producer, you guys. So when I say mega producer, he and his team would close over 100 homes a month, right? At one point, they were the number one team in the whole entire country out of 1.3 million realtors. So best of the best there, right? So for over 20 years, massive real estate career, hung up the helmet there and then transitioned over into creating one of the top real estate agent coaching firms called Club Wealth in the country. Now he's the CEO and owner and founder of Club Wealth. So really stoked and honored to have our guest, Michael Hellickson, on the show. Show, my friend.
Oh my gosh, that's thank you for having me. Bottom line, I really appreciate you having me, Josh. It's an honor. It's funny when I hear you talking about me like that, I'm like, oh, like it's embarrassing to hear that, right? Like it's always humbling is one word, but it's just, I don't know, man. It's always hard to hear people say nice things about me for some reason. So thank you for the wonderful introduction. It's very nice.
Yeah, it shows, your character, right? And your intentions, and that, you're in for all the right reasons, man. And, I always think when it is hard to receive a compliment, right. With that, it shows the character, man. It's cool, man. It's, what I love about uber successful people, like when I meet top producers, let's just say in the real estate business, and we talked about this off air for a second, but when I first got in the business, I think a lot of people, I'd see all these mega producers, like when I got in the business and met you, dude, I mean, I was 100 homes a year, with a smaller team, but I saw you doing that a month and I'm like, fuck, like how's that even possible? Right. And I, put guys like you on these big pedestals and think that like, you're just different. Like you had some special genetic code that maybe I didn't have. And over the years, you become a top producer and you meet and start to hang out with a lot of the top agents out there. And whether it's in real estate or any industry out there, when you meet people that have truly made it, are truly successful, dude, they're the most just kind, humble, giving, helpful people on the planet because they know all the shit that they've had to be through. Like you get to a point where you go through enough shit that I think it just dissolves the ego. So I love it, man. So let's jump in.
I got to jump on that really quick before you move on for that, because I think you hit a nail on the head. I hope people are really hearing this. I think a lot of it is at some point in time, all of us in our lives, we either get humbled or like we either become humble on our own or we get humbled. Like something happens in our life that forces us to have a little humility. It's kind of almost like God says, dude, you better calm the ego down or I'm going to calm it down for you. And let me tell you, man, once you've been through that a couple of times, you start to realize, hey, man, we're just all another squirrel trying to get a nut. Like everybody's just trying to do the best they can. And you start having a lot more tolerance for other people and their mistakes. And you really have to, it's like in this industry, it's crazy. There seems to, sometimes you see there's a lot of, backbiting or infighting and that sort of thing in the industry, or people getting jealous or angry at other agents, that sort of thing. At the end of the day, there's a lot of really good people in this business and they're just trying to do the right thing. And I think by and large, most people are just good people. So just give them a shot.
Yeah. Yeah, love it, man. Can agree. And hopefully we'll be able to hear about your getting humbled stories here as we jump into your journey, man. So I'm really intrigued on this, man, because again, man, you jumped in the business. So we're talking 20 years. When did you retire from real estate and start Club Wealth?
So, well, I started Club Wealth before I quote unquote retired. I actually sold my business. We'll talk about that in a minute, but started selling real estate when I was 18 years old. It was 1991, believe it or not.
Okay.
Yeah, so a long time ago. But Club Wealth actually started in 2001 as a group for our investors. So we were coaching investors in our local real estate market, helping them buy and hold real estate. And it was actually really cool. And then that grew. And then all of a sudden, about 2007, kind of about the time that you and I kind of got connected there, just a couple of years before that, is when I started having agents contact me saying, "Hey man, just can you help us out? Show me what you're doing. Tell me what you're doing." And it kind of got like something you were mentioning earlier. It was kind of the same conversation all the time, but it wasn't real organized. And so what I did was I thought, well, okay, if I'm going to really be doing this a lot, I got to put some structure to it and really kind of have a system to help these guys. And anyway, so that's when Club Wealth started. But we officially hung up the shingle in selling real estate in 2011. And then actually right after that, I took 3.5 years off. You want to go back and walk through that story?
Yeah. Well, I mean, what's crazy about this is, because you're from being in the business that long, especially in 91, because that's like, dude, the internet was, right? Like you've been,
dude, we had books.
Positions of the, I have a good buddy of mine, Steve Curtis, who's been in the business for like 48 years, right? And a very successful owner, broker, agent up in Silicon Valley. And he's like, look, he goes, throughout my career, there's been about a dozen different times where I've heard that this is it. It's like the whole Uberization of real estate, where he's like, the sky is falling chicken little. Oh, the internet is going to dissolve the realtor. He's like, dude, it's the same story over and over and over again. He's like, the only real change I've ever seen in real estate is the contracts have went from a 1-page contract to a 3-page to a 10-page. He goes, other than that, he goes, eyeballs move around from the newspaper to now Facebook. He goes, but dude, at the end of the day, it's all the same. 40 years, all the same, right? And I love hearing those stories because so many realtors are freaking out right now because of all the iBuyers and all the shit going on. Right? And it's just repackaged up in a different story, right? So, but so let's just start from the beginning, man. You got in at 18.
So, So I was 18 years old. I was in high school. So in January, I turned 18. I got my license by March. By graduation, I was the top agent in my office, which really all that meant was I was less broke than the rest of the agents, right? I was still freaking broke, right? So, and it's funny because and you talk about mindset. This was a real lesson for me. My parents, and I love my parents, nothing bad to say about my parents, but like most parents, my parents wanted what they thought was best for me. Well, they saw how hard I was working. I was literally working 100-hour weeks, sleeping under my desk 3 nights a week at the office. And I was broke. I was flat broke. And they said, look, you need to go get a job at McDonald's because you'd make more money. And the sad truth was they were right. And yet I was like, there's no way I'm doing that. And so my parents, every time I would talk to them, and this is going to sound terrible, but you talk about mindset and what it takes to succeed. We were talking about some of these Uber producers earlier, like Jeff Bezos and these guys. Dude, literally every time I talked to my parents back then, it was everything that came out of their mouth was, you need to stop doing what you're doing and go do something that normal people do, right? Like go get a real job. And it was just, to me, it was coming across as negative. And I just told my parents, I said, I love you guys. Don't call me, I'll call you. And for 10 months, I didn't speak to my parents. And it was those 10 months that I got my head straight and I got myself figured out. And I realized, if I'm going to succeed at this business, I got to be singularly focused and I've got to understand it better. And in understanding it better, I sought help. And I got, actually, you probably know, of course, everybody knows Mike Ferry, right? So hired Mike as my first coach. And he told me, and he changed my life. I'll tell you what he told, the sentence that I will never forget. And he's taught me a lot. But one of the things he taught me that changed my life was, if you don't have an assistant, you are one. And here I am, this broke kid, barely getting by, trying to figure out how am I going to make a living in this business. And I got to go out and hire an assistant. Like, how am I going to pay for that? I had no idea how I was going to pay for it. So what I knew was I had a credit card. And I'm like, well, I'm either going to make it or I'm going to be broke and in debt the rest of my life. So I might as well just give it all I got. So I was going to have to pay her more than I had made in a single year. But I hired this gal. And let me tell you, man, it was life-changing, completely changed my business. I paid her more that year than I made myself the year before. She worked for me for 4 years, by the way, and that's when we got married. It was 4 years later.
Oh, right on, dude.
I always tell people that's when I went to work for her, right? Dude, the rule at our house is any man that says he wears the pants in the family probably lies about other things too.
Yeah.
So, oh yeah, but she lit it up, right? Like she just, when she first came on board, and we weren't even dating at that time. It was just, she was just working for me, and she crushed it. She did all the stuff that I sucked at and made it possible for me to focus on what I was made to do, which was not paperwork and was not detail stuff. That was stuff she was good at. So that was the start. So then over time, we built up a nice sized team. By about 2007, we had we had about 16 agents on the team and a bunch of administrative staff members. At our peak, we had 44 people on the team. 32 of those were administrative. The rest were agents. We were doing, like you said, just over 100 transactions a month. At one point in time, we had 750 listings in active and pending status. And right about then, in 2007, so Josh, who's the regulatory board in your state? Like, who issues your license where you're at?
Arizona Department of Real Estate.
Okay, there you go. Perfect. All right. So what would you do if you caught the Arizona Department of Real Estate breaking the law? What would you do?
I don't know who I'd go to.
Yeah, but you would want to do something, right?
Yeah. You want to take action.
Compelled to do something, right? Okay. Well, that was my biggest mistake. I felt compelled to do something too. And because I caught the Washington State Department of Real Estate license breaking the law. And so on the advice of my very intelligent attorney, he's actually the guy that wrote the Law of Real Estate Agency in Washington. I took his advice and we sued him, and we won. We beat him. We actually got a court order that said they had to stop doing what they were doing. And let me tell you, that was like poking a sleeping bear. Oh my gosh, this was the stupidest thing I've ever done as a business person in my life. So here I was at the top of my game, big ego, like I'm making all this money, crushing it on sales. And I'm like, I'm untouchable, man. I'm going to go after these guys. How dare they do this to real estate agents? And dude, let me tell you, even after winning in court, now the next week they hired a full-time investigator whose job for 17 and a half months it was to find a way to get us out of the business. It was insane. And so 17 and a half months later, they couldn't find us doing anything wrong. So they wrote a letter saying, hey, it looks like you're doing everything you're supposed to do. We're going to drop it. You're good. Go ahead and do it. Keep doing what you're doing. Well, fast forward to 2010, we found out they were violating that agreement. And, that court order that said that they had to follow the law. And so my attorney says, now you got to take them to court now, because if you don't, you're complicit and your court order goes away. So we filed a lawsuit to take them back to court to get them to stop breaking the law. And let me tell you, the very next week, guess what they did? They decided it would be easier to take my real estate license than it would to fight me in court. So with no warning, no hearings, no, hey, we think you're doing anything wrong, on the Friday of Labor Day weekend, they hit send on an email suspending my real estate license and telling the department or the MLS to cancel our 750 listings. So I lost $4.5 million in a click of a mouse. Gone. 44 team members, 750 listings, all of it gone overnight. And it took us 30 days to get them in front of a judge. And we get them in front of the judge, and what do you think the judge said?
I have no idea, dude.
Crazy, right? Like, this is tragic, right? So the judge looks at me. The judge is literally yelling at the state's attorney general in open court. And he says, you guys destroyed these people's careers. You violated their civil rights in 3 different ways. And the taking of their real estate license in and of itself was grossly negligent. And they made them give us our licenses back. And they told them, now you guys leave them alone and start following the law. So guess what we got in damages?
I mean, I don't know.
Nothing.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
Yeah, because they're the state, right? So they have express and implied immunity. So here I'm at rock bottom. Dude, you want to talk about rock bottom in your life? You want to talk about, I was like a month ago, we had the #1 real estate team in the country, arguably in the world. We can't prove it, but I'm sure there was nobody else in the world that I'm aware of that was doing more business at that point. A month later, we're out of business, have no team, have no listings, and all the money's gone. I mean, you want to talk about a crazy turn of events. So we get our licenses back. Takes us in the next 90 days, we get back up to 227 listings, which is good, right? It's not bad. And they start coming after us again. We spend $356,000 fighting me in court. We beat them every single time we go to court. And it finally hit me like a ton of bricks. I looked at my wife and I said, sweetie, you got to let me sell the company, because here's the deal. These guys are never going to stop. They don't care if they ever beat us in court. They don't need to. They can run us out of money without ever beating us in court. And if that doesn't happen, I'm going to have a heart attack. And so with her permission, we sold the company to one of our team members. And I was coaching about 60 of the top 200 agents in the country at the time, called them all up and said, look, you can call me for free advice. I love you. I want to help you, but I cannot take your money if my head and my heart just aren't in it right now. So I'm going to take a year off. I'm going to get my head straight and figure out what I'm doing. And so that's what I did. And then a year turned into 3.5 years. Turns out retirement's kind of fun. Go figure. And then I started getting calls. I get calls from guys like Jesse Zagorski and Mike Bjorkman and all these guys that I used to coach saying, hey, we want you to get back into coaching. We want you to work with our teams, yada, yada, yada. And I got to tell you, and you were talking about down points in your life. I was down when I lost when we went through that fight and when we went all through all the stuff with the state. That was heartbreaking. That was hard. And it was very difficult for us. But what was even harder was making the decision to come back. That was really hard. And so I remember a call with Mike Bjorkman. He's telling me, he's like, you got to come back. You got to get back into coaching, yada, yada, yada. And I remember telling him, I said, Mike, after what I've been through, who's going to want to listen to me? After what I've gone through, who's going to want to coach with me? And he says, dude, that is the dumbest, most selfish, like limiting belief I've ever heard in my life. Like, you got to stop that. You got to get your freaking head straight. And he was like verbally slapping me over and over and over again, telling me, look, you got to get your head in the game here. And so Tara and I got on our knees, and for 2 weeks, we talked about it. We prayed about it. We fasted over it. We just got really hardcore about, is this really what God wants us to do? And man, I got to tell you, we came back with obviously the feeling that, yes, this is what we needed to do. But man, I got to tell you, for anybody that's watching this right now, everybody goes through some point in their life where they're at the bottom, and you've got to find a way to get back up. Because here's the reality. The reality is nobody else is going to pull you back up. You got to make the decision for yourself that you're going to pull yourself back up, and it's not going to be easy. But you got to also understand that you can always reinvent yourself. No matter what's gone on in your life, no matter how bad things have gotten, you can reinvent yourself, and that's what we had to do. And the rest is history. So we started Club Wealth back up. 2.5 years later, we were the #1 coaching company in the team space for one-on-one coaching in the team space, and it's been going great since then. So there you go. There's the life story for you.
Yeah, I love it, dude. So one thing is, I'm hearing all of this, and even when you go back to when you first jumped in and the struggles and parents and being in your ears, and there's been a lot of research, and I can't remember the gal's name, but great TED Talk video on this of people trying to discover, like, hey, what makes people successful versus others, and they just boil down to one thing. They're like grit. I just watched this Tom Brady video, right, about how 6th-round draft pick, 199th, whatever, and they're like, what everybody underestimated, like including the Patriots, because otherwise, if they knew what he was going to be, they would have snapped him up right away. He's like, everybody underestimated him. He's like, look, we were looking at a piece of paper of his statistics. He's like, what everybody neglected to do was rip open his chest and look into his heart, right, and see his spine, right, and look at the amount of resilience this guy had, and it's a guy that doesn't have the innate talent, but he has the biggest heart, and he's become now the best guy that's ever played the game. And it's like, look, a lot of people just aren't willing to go out there and do whatever it takes. And you to be successful in entrepreneurship in any venture, so you got to be kind of wired a certain way. Some of that, like, you got to have the want and the desire and the conviction, right? So were you always this type of a driven person, or like, how did that start, dude? Because even like most people would have just taken their parents' advice after a year and say, they're right, let me do this thing, like you have that conviction to stick with it no matter what, right? So
I don't know when that started. I'll be honest. It's funny. I see it in my kids more than I see it in me. Like Austin, I've got a 17-year-old son he works for us in sales. He was our #1 sales guy from the time he was 14 till 16. He was our #1 salesperson on our company. And this kid just won't take no for an answer, right? I mean, he's that way, kind of, he's got that grit you described. I don't know when I got it. I don't, but I can tell you this, and it's funny you mention that, because I completely agree. So many people are looking for that magic pill, and so many people get so discouraged so easily, and they get so deterred from their goal, whatever it is, so easily, that they don't realize that they're, to quote the cliche, that they're 3 feet from gold, right? And at the end of the day, success really is boring. It's not exciting. It's not like, oh, I did this magical thing and boom, it happened, right? It's no, I grinded it out day after day after day, and it freaking sucked. And I had people telling me I was a loser, and I had people, including people that loved me and people that meant well for me. But I had people in my life, and this goes for anybody. This isn't just my story. This is most very successful people. They've got all those people in their lives that are, that are pushing against them. And what happens is every time someone's pushing against you and telling you you can't, what you come back with is, you know what, just because you said that, I'm going to work even harder to become that guy, to make it happen. And I got to tell you, man, that's really kind of been, well, I tell you, the first time I remember this was when I was brand new in real estate. I was 18 years old. I was in this office. I had just received the award for top agent in the office, and every freaking 40-something-year-old agent in that office hated my guts. Everybody. And I remember this title rep walks in, and I don't remember the guy's name. I don't even think he's in the business to this day. But at that point in time, this title rep walks in. He's an older guy. He's been in the industry a long time. And he asked me, he says, well, what's your goal? And I said, well, I want to make $100,000 a year. And he looked at me like I was out of my freaking mind. He literally says to me, I'll tell you what, when you make $100,000 a year, you let me know when you have your first $100,000 a year. I'm going to go down to the Nordstrom's window in downtown Seattle. I'm going to pull my pants down and kiss my own rear end. I'm like, I can't believe people talk to people like that, first of all. Like, I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Second of all, as soon as he said that, I'm like, screw you. I'm going to do it just because you said I can't. So.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah, I love it, man. So then, one thing that you said too, of in 2001, how Club Wealth started. Mm-hmm. Is, and the reason I'm so intrigued about this is, there's no magic pill, there's no secret, but there kind of is a secret sauce, right? Of hey man, if you're methodical with your strategy, yeah, right. It's like, okay, you start working with these investors, and most agents are working with investors, and it's like, hey, that's a tactic, but mm-hmm. you blow it up by applying that strategy to it, and the strategy that you apply with Club Wealth with that is just brilliant, man. And it's about doing something different, adding value to the consumer that they can, and being able to bring people in and really create something that nobody else has. And one of my best friends in the real estate industry, who you may know, Leo Preha, who is
I know Leo very well.
Yeah, right. And now owner of Remind, with his team, you always look at like when he had his real estate team before he sold it. Dude, they were doing, they only had 10 agents, right? Very high price point, but 600 and some transactions a year. So the average agent was doing 60 plus deals a year, right? But they looked at certain strategies where they could get that reoccurring business and increase that business, but then do it in such a way where they controlled it and like they had what nobody else could service that clientele with. And so Club Wealth is like, hey, look, we want to go after these investor clients, which then it's not just one sell every 7 years, right? The average buyer sell, like they're repeat buying and selling. But then it's like, hey, we're going to go out there and create a firm that we teach people how to get into real estate, how to invest, how to create wealth. And then we go out there and get that business, right from it. And talk to us about that. Kind of how you did it, how you created it, and the success that it's had. Because I think that agents today more so than ever have to go out of the box with this type of strategies. Now that it's becoming more of a transactional business, right? You gotta be different.
Well, I wish I could say that I started off with a great grand strategy. I really didn't start off that way. What it started off is I was just doing, a lot of people do home buyer seminars, right? And so what I thought was, okay, well, what are the big transaction points out there? You got buyers, you got sellers, and then you got investors, right? So I started doing seminars on all three. And then what I realized very quickly was, okay, the investor side, like these guys, like my buyers, they're going to buy a house once every 10 to 14 years, right? The sellers, they're going to sell a house once every 10 to 14 years. But these investors, now if I really start getting in with these investors, I can get them buying a house a year, even if it's just buy and hold. Like I didn't want to compete with the guys that were doing all the auction steps, the courthouse steps, doing the foreclosure stuff and all that, because there were some guys in our market like Dean Street was crushing it with that, and a lot of other guys, similar story. So I thought, and besides that, it wasn't really my strategy. I'm kind of more of a buy and hold guy rather than a flip properties kind of guy. So I thought, well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to do seminars. And I'm going to teach people how I've been, because I was buying a lot of rental properties at that point in time. And so I just thought, well, I'm just going to teach them how I'm doing it and see if I can get some of my existing clients to go out and buy a rental property. And so I started there, and all of a sudden they started buying some rental properties. And it started off with just a few people. And I'd do these classes, and I'd have 10 to 20 people show up. And then maybe 5 of them would end up doing something with me. And then I started realizing, hey, wait a minute, now they need tips on how to manage the tenants. Now they need help on, how to handle these rental properties now that they have them, and then how to go out and do it some more. So that's when we started getting more regular with what we were doing with these guys. And we started holding regular meetings. So first it started off as once a month, and then they said, no, we want more. So it was twice a month, and then they wanted more. And so it was once a week. And all of a sudden I went from very little attendance to all of a sudden every week I've got 60, 70 people coming out to a meeting. And all of these people are now, to be at the meeting, you have to have a buyer agency agreement with me. So now to be at the meeting, they're all clients of mine. And they're all buying more rental properties, and they're all getting each other excited about buying more rental properties. And it just, oh my gosh, it just took off, and they all did very, very well with it. And so yeah, it was, but again, I didn't start off with this, oh, I've got it all figured out. I've got the grand plan. And really what it became is, it was kind of, again, that grind, right? It was every day I kept plugging away. And there were lots of times during that phase where it looked like it was all going to collapse, where, I had to have a meeting and 5 people would show up. And I'm like, oh my gosh, is this really worth it? Like, am I doing something wrong? Is everybody leaving me? What's going on? And self-doubt starts to creep in. And, but yeah, I just kept grinding away at it, and it worked.
So, yeah, I mean, it's just so amazing, right? Cause it's, I had another dude, on the podcast, a top realtor in Hawaii, and, he does something similar. His niche is, people that are elderly that are having to sell their home and go into assisted living. And so we started holding these seminars, not about how to sell their house, right, but on how to make that transition. And they, they facilitate the experience where they have people that will do the trash outs, bring everything to storage, help them. They've connected the relationships with all this stuff. And he goes to me, he's like, look, man, he goes, now I have 32 people in a room. I'm doing 32 listing presentations all at one time.
That's right.
And so when you hear, and I only bring that up because some people might be like, well, I'm not an investor like Michael. Like it's so easy to get this like limiting belief of why we can't do what you did. Right. We can really apply it to any niche that you have. It's just delivering value, delivering education, getting them to want to show up. And, but when people hear like doing 100 homes a month, right? Cause we only have so many hours in a day, right? You were just able to, and maybe it started on accident, but you strategically put pieces together. We're reflecting and working every day at creating the process and perfecting it. And that's how you go to 100 homes a year, because you didn't really have that big of a team, right? When you really break it down, your agent count is smaller than my agent count, and we're not doing the units that you did. You just found a better way to do it.
I'll tell you what was interesting, and it's one of those things. First of all, nobody ever believes it when they first hear it. They're like, "There's no way." Do you know Verl Workman, by the way?
Yeah.
Super good guy, right? So Verl's a very good friend of mine. He didn't believe it, right? He's like, there's Hellickson, there's no freaking way. And what he really didn't believe was when I told him, so I was on the listing appointments, I was actually listing 50 to 75 houses a month, not counting the REO, which was about half of our business, and not counting my team. That was just me going on listing appointments. And I was doing that in 12 days a month. Verl calls me up. He's like, there's no way. You are lying. There's no possible way that you're actually doing that. I'm like, dude, come out. Fly out here and come on listing appointments with me for 2 days. I'll show you exactly what I do. So he shows up. Now I love Earl's if you guys don't know him, he's one of the nicest guys on the planet. Super cool guy. And he shows up and the night before I pick him up late, at the airport. I drop him off at his hotel and I said, okay, here's what's going to happen. I'm going to pick you up tomorrow at 7 a.m. You're going to get in the back seat of my car. You can't sit in the front because that's where my stuff sits. Because I got a thing that I do, right? I'm making my follow-up calls in the car, in between appointments, all that. So you're going to have to sit in the back. And he looks at me like, you're joking, right? I'm like, no, like truly, you're going to have to sit in the back. And I said, and you're going to want to have eaten by the time you get in there because we're not going to have time to stop for food throughout the day. I'll have protein shakes with me. I have my powder and I got bottled water in the car and I pound my protein shakes throughout the day. So we won't have time to stop to eat. And I said, and then you can't say anything during the day. Like until 10 o'clock at night, you can't say anything because I've got to stay on my game. I got to be efficient, right? And he's like, oh my gosh, what have I got myself into? And I said, look, even when we go to listing appointments, you can say hi. That's the only word you can say. And you can shake their hand, but that's it. I said, if they look at you like, save me from this crazy person, I don't want you to say a word. And if the house starts burning down, right? If the house catches on fire, just walk outside quietly and go call 911 and then come back inside and watch me close them before the house is ashes, right? But just don't say anything. And so we go on 14 appointments in 2 days. While we were in the car, I said, so I make 115 to 125 follow-up calls from the car in between appointments. If I get a no-show, it's awesome, right? So it gives me a chance to make some more follow-up calls. No big deal. We go 14 for 14 in those 2 days. We list every single one of those houses, and it was all different scenarios, and they were all different backgrounds. And I had crazy people. I had husbands and wives getting divorced, yelling at each other. I had one house that was actually a burnout. These kids had invested in. But point that I'm trying to make is what I did every day wasn't magical. People think it was magical because of the numbers. But what I did every day was think about the basics, right? There's 3 things you have to do. You want to be successful in this business, it really boils down to 3 things. Lead generation, lead follow-up, and lead conversion. That's it. There is nothing else. If you do those 3 things consistently at a high level every single day, you're going to make money in this business. So what I did was I just figured out how to give everything else away to somebody else. So I didn't do anything else in my business. Like I take a listing, I take that paperwork over, I put it on my assistant's desk. I don't ever talk to that person again unless they need to be reclosed. And that's the only time I ever talk to them again. Otherwise, my team does everything. But you have to do that. You have to get yourself in a position where, like, for example, I didn't make any lead generation calls anymore because I had developed lead generation systems. I had, right at that time, I probably had 25, 30 lead gen systems that were on autopilot. And I didn't have systems that each month each kicked off 50 listings. I had 25 or 30 lead generation systems that each kicked off 1 or 2 listings a month. That's fine. That's great. I made sure I put them on a system so that every single time that they were automated, and all I had to do was make follow-up calls, not lead generation calls. Does that make sense?
Yep. Yeah. Love it, dude. So, yeah. And then, with that, like as you were going through your process, right, of with rolling the car, right, a lot of agents, cause it's like, look, we got to learn to ask the right questions. And you just said, like I wasn't doing anything magical. Right? If somebody saw your listing presentation, it probably didn't have some insane out of the world thing that nobody else has ever seen.
It was a checklist.
What's that?
I didn't have a presentation. I had a checklist.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah.
That's it.
So, but to me with that is what I love about this is the planning that goes into this. Right. So that's what intrigues me with this is like, what is your planning reflection process for you to be able to tell Virl, all right, dude, you can't talk to me. You got to do here. Like you over time, you must have some type of a daily planning, daily reflection process that allowed you to get that level to know how you operate at your best, right. And you weren't allowing anybody to disrupt that, right. So, and I'm sure it happens over time. Can you walk us through where do you even start? Is it like a daily thing that you do? Right? That allows you to get to that point?
I would love to say that I'm doing the miracle morning thing and then I get up at 4 a.m. and work out and blah, blah. Dude, let me tell you, 5 months ago, I was 274 pounds. Today, I am 196. So I'm 194. So I'm down 80 pounds in 5 months. Why? Not because I was disciplined, but because I went and got weight loss surgery. Because I knew that I couldn't stop eating and I wasn't going to work out. So I went and just took care of it with weight loss surgery. So what I've done, and so like I can't say that I had this uber disciplined morning schedule or anything like that. What I did was, yes, I showed up every morning early. So at 7:30 in the morning, I was in the office working, period. Every single morning, 7:30, I'm in the office working. And that was non-negotiable. I worked 4 days a week. I worked Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. I took my weekends off. And so those 4 days a week, I'd work 7:30 till 10 at night. So 7:30 in the morning till 10 at night. And what I would do is my entire day was scheduled. So like if you look at my calendar now, it's the same way, right? So I had to figure out how do I put the right people around me so that every single day, all I do is the thing that I do best, which is go from appointment to appointment to appointment to appointment. So like, for example, today I have 9 ISAs that keep my calendar full. So literally every day from 5:30 in the morning till 6 o'clock at night, Monday through Thursday, and then I work until 1 o'clock on Fridays. My schedule is literally full with no breaks, no lunch break, nothing. And it's just back-to-back calls. That's what I do all day. So was there, in terms of planning, did I plan all this? No, I screwed it up. That's what I did. I freaking screwed it up all the time. And I just figured out how to fix one mistake at a time. And as I fixed that mistake, so if I figured out, okay, this thing is taking me away from being on appointments. How do I get rid of this thing? And I would have to find a way to either just get rid of it altogether or find somebody else that could do it. And every time I did that, my day got more efficient. And my guys, we had listing agents on our team, same thing, right? The listing agents on the team were doing anywhere from 10 to 21 listings a month. And people think that's crazy, but it's not. Like, if you're really focused, and if you're really, if you're really avoiding the distractions that everybody suffers from in real estate, you can accomplish that. You just got to hit it hard every day and don't get distracted.
Yeah. Yep. Love it, dude. So, then kind of transition into like what you're doing today with you. I mean, now you're working with so many top real estate agents all over the country, top team leaders. Times again are changing. Things are, it's like, I was talking about this earlier today on a webinar that I had before our call look, when I first got into business, dude, like offering a custom automated home search that would email somebody a property every day. Like that was powerful. Right? And I get people all the time after a year, I can't believe you followed up with me all this time. And, right? It's getting harder and harder because more information is readily available. It's getting harder and harder to be able to deliver value, to get that lead. And then people are so bombarded, like to just get people's attention, right? But the great part about that though is it's getting harder, but it's also getting easier because of technology in order to do that. So, I'd love to hear about, what are your, because I know that you sold the company and you said 2011. So we always did this interview 2019, right? So, what are the things that you're doing? Because you may not be active in real estate, but all you do is help the top producers that are active grow their business, with this. Like what are some of the things that are crushing and killing right now on those three things that you talked about, right? Lead gen, lead conversion and with that are killing it.
So let's start with this. We do have expansion teams out there still, but I don't operate. I don't personally sell real estate anymore. But that said, let's start with lead generation. If you ask 100 agents out there, what's your biggest challenge? Most of them are going to say lead generation. I just need more leads. If I had more leads, I'd make more money. The reality is that's not most agents' problem. Most agents' problem is lead follow-up, right? There's a million ways to get leads, and it's easy to get leads. It's like walking over the wall and turning on the faucet if you want more leads. All you got to do is write a check nowadays. You can have as many leads as you want. So for us, the key has always been the latter of those two, the last two of the three things you've got to do every day. It's lead follow-up and lead conversion. So on lead follow-up, what we've figured out is speed to lead nowadays is mission critical. Like there is nothing more important in lead follow-up than speed to lead. So it used to be back in the day, Josh, when you and I were started doing this, back when we were writing contracts on stone tablets, if you got back to somebody same day, it's no big deal. They'll probably still work with you. Then it was, a few years back, 6-7 years ago, Harvard Business Review came out with that study that said, if you don't respond to somebody in the first 5 minutes, your chances of connecting with them drop by 900%. And so everybody's like, oh my gosh, I got to get on these leads in 5 minutes. And so they started getting more aggressive. Well, then we did a study. I've got a client in San Diego, Jesse Zagorski, and he's got an ISA named Benson. So we did a little study with Benson. I called Benson up and I said, hey, here's what I want you to do. I want you to contact each one of these leads. As soon as you get an internet lead that comes in, I want you to, instead of looking the lead up, just hit send on your phone. Don't even look the lead up. Just call them. While it's ringing, you can look the lead up. So they did it. So Benson did this. And the goal was I wanted him to get on the phone with them in the first 30 seconds every single time. And dude, let me tell you, he nailed it. For 2 weeks, he did exactly that. Got on the phone with them every single time within the first 30 seconds. And as you can imagine, his conversion rates went way up. His contact rate and his conversion rate went way up. He was setting a ton more appointments. And so then I asked him, I said, well, let me ask you this, Benson. While you were on the phone with them, how many other agents called them in those first 5 minutes on the phone? I mean, what do you think he told me?
0.
Actually, that was what I thought he was going to tell me. I was convinced that's what I was going to hear. But he's in San Diego. And what he told me was 4 to 5 other agents in the first 5 minutes. And so I'm thinking to myself, okay, well, what do we know about real estate agents? What do they suck at, right? Like, what are real estate agents not doing at a high level? Follow-up, right? The vast majority of real estate agents out there are not rock solid on their follow-up. They might make that initial call, but the chances of them making a subsequent call drop dramatically. In fact, the chances of them making a subsequent call are less than 48%. That's a big number. So what I told him to do was keep him on the phone for 5 minutes. Keep that seller on the phone for 5 minutes, because what we know is if the other agents are calling him up, more than half of them are never going to call back, and that person's not going to call them. They're going to go to voicemail, game over. You've eliminated over half your competition. So then what we figured out is, okay, well, what about those people that don't answer the phone right away? So I call somebody up, and I call this internet lead up. They don't pick up the phone. What do? Now, most agents are going to leave a message, right? It's the worst thing you can do. Hang up the freaking phone. We literally immediately hang up the phone, no message. We do what we call double dial, right? So we call them right back. And this time, if they don't pick up the phone, we hang up again. And we don't leave a message again. And a lot of people at this point, a lot of agents at this point are like, what are you talking about? Now, think about a mom out there, Josh. Do you have kids? You have kids, right, Josh?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
All right. Think of any parent out there, right? Somebody calls you from a number you don't recognize. You don't answer. They don't leave a message. They call again. You don't answer. They don't leave a message. Then you get the following text message. And this text message, 3 words. These 3 words get us a response 85%, well, 83 to 85% of the time. Super simple. Is this Susie? Like whatever name they registered with online, you just say, is this so-and-so? And they almost always respond back with yes. And my immediate response is very simple. My immediate response is, I'm calling you now. What's going through their mind?
Yeah, something important, something, yeah.
Something's wrong with my kid. Is my kid, if they got teenagers, are they in jail? Did they get in a car accident? What's going on? They're going to pick up that phone call. And here's the thing. I'd rather have them tell me no right now than for me to follow up with them for 3 or 4 months and then have them tell me no. I want to get that no today so that I can get to my yeses. So this thing freaking works like a charm. It's incredible how well it works. Now, let's say I still don't get a hold of them. Let's say I call them and text them. And I still don't get a hold of them. Then I'm going to put them on my long-term nurture campaign. And so here's what I'm going to do. It's very simple. We call it the rule of 3. 3 times a day for the first 3 days. I'm going to call, text, email, voicemail, video text, and video email. And then I'm also going to Facebook stalk them. I got to do all this stuff, right? It's a lot of stuff. But I'm going to find out how they communicate best because it's not going to be in my way. It's going to be in their way. So then I'm going to do this 3 times a day for the first 3 days, 3 times a week for the next 3 weeks, and 3 times a month for the next 3 months. That's a lot of follow-up. But I found that if we can get both the speed to lead and the tenacity of follow-up up, the conversion is insane. This is especially particular, works especially well with seller leads. And that's one of the reasons we were listing as many homes as we were.
Yeah.
Making sense so far?
Yeah. No, I love it.
Thinking I'm crazy yet?
It's still, I remember my buddy, Chad Goldwasser, who.
I know Chad.
Yeah. Right. He called it, what was it, like the bulldog, like 3-2-1 bulldog or something like that, where same thing, like 3 different calls, just bam, 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 but he'd do it from a different line each time in the room, right? And it's crazy, dude, right? Because at that point, like, if we just put ourselves, as you talked about and framed it, in the position of the consumer, which I don't think sometimes as real estate agents we do, if like, dude, I never answer my phone ever. But if somebody blew up my phone 3 times right now and within a minute, it's going to create that curiosity where I'm going to wonder what's up, and they're probably going to get a call back, right? Yeah. So then when you said don't leave voicemails, we're seeing so many agents now because they don't want to do the dials, right, that are using like a slide broadcast, voicemail dumps. Don't
get me wrong. I like slide broadcast for some things. Don't get me wrong, but dude, that's a weak excuse for people not to make calls. I get. I'm sorry. Keep going, man. I get it.
Yeah, well, I was just curious if you're totally anti it or if there are reasons and times that you like it.
There are reasons and times I like it. Sure, absolutely. But I'll tell you, by and large, for most real estate agents, probably not, right? Why? Because let's say, for example, client events, right? And client events are a great way to get more business out of your sphere of influence. And so many agents don't want to do it. But the reason we hold client events is there's one primary reason why we hold client events. It's to give us an excuse to call somebody without being self-serving at all. It's all we're doing is calling to give them something. If I slide, and it kills me when I hear agents, I'm holding a client event, and I sent out a slide broadcast to all of them, or a direct to voicemail message to all of my sphere of influence to invite them. Like, dude, you just missed the entire point of holding the client event. Because here's what happens. Like Christy Lundy, another agent in San Diego, like Christy's, she was skeptical about doing the client event thing. I had her do her first client event. She had 40 people show up to her client event, but she did 5 transactions from that one event. 4 of those 5 people didn't even show up to the event. So what happened? It was when she called them, they would say something like, well, Christy, we're not going to be able to make it this weekend. We're kind of busy. But, it's interesting you called because our kids were thinking about buying a house. And by the way, she didn't use any corny, oh, by the way, if you were thinking of buying or selling, I'm like, no corny freaking, scripts like that. No, none of this. Like, don't do that. That's very self-serving, right? she was just genuinely calling them up, and she wasn't saying I'm having a client event. She said, hey, I'm having a happy hour party here coming up. I just wanted to invite you. Or I'm having a barbecue in my backyard. Just wanted to see if you want to come over and have a burger on me. Just keep it low key. They want to be your friend. They'll be your client, but they really want to be your friend.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So then with this kind of an aggressive follow-up strategy, and you talked about this earlier of getting inbound leads coming to you, then you're doing the follow-ups versus, sitting on the phone circle prospecting all day. Cause it's like, if you do that type of follow-up, it'd make it impossible to pound the phones, calling expireds, FSBOs, whatever. And I'm assuming most of your clients at this point would have ISA teams, because it'd be, like shit, we only have so much time in the day to do all of this stuff. I mean, is that like what's your take on that, right? Because you see so many agents that, I see all the time in Facebook groups of, I did 1,000 dials today, circle prospecting, did set an appointment. And I've never been a cold caller because I fucking hate it. Like I'd rather piss calls.
I don't enjoy it either.
Right. So when it comes to then getting the intake, the inbound list, the lead, for that, like what are a couple of the just top methods that you'd recommend for agents to do that are just having more success, if you will, than others?
Well, first of all, you hit the nail on the head. We got to transition from chasing business to attracting business, right? As quickly as possible. And it's easier said than done, but it is possible. And the sooner you can do it, the sooner you can focus on where the real money is, right? The fortune's in the follow-up. So the sooner I can transition from chasing to attracting, the sooner I can get to more follow-up. In fact, I'll give you, we were talking earlier, I've got a download you guys can have. It's got my top 31 lead sources in it. But there's no magic to the lead sources either. I mean, I'll give you a bunch of these lead sources, but understand this. It's about getting one lead source in place and then moving on to the next one and getting the next one in place. And once you when I say getting them in place, get it automated, get it, happening on autopilot, and then go start the next one. It should take you about 2 to 3 months maximum to bring in a lead source, get it active and automated, and then move on to the next one. And so to your point, Josh, I hate, like, the last 15 years of my career, I didn't call a single FSBO, expired, cold call, none of it. I hated that stuff. It was not for me. And I was coached by Mike Ferry in my young years as an agent. So guess what? I got really good at those things, but I didn't like it. Right? It wasn't my thing. So there's lots of things. Like in fact, I know you do the same thing or something very similar. We do what we call massive open houses, right? Massive open house is a great way. You want to get leads for cheap. You want to get a ton of really good leads for cheap. Start doing massive open houses where you're getting 50 to 150 people out to your open house instead of 4 or 5. Yeah. And it doesn't cost a lot of money. It's like $100. It really doesn't cost a lot of money. Or go do something like listings to leads. Listings to leads is a great source, right? It's like $40 a month. And they do all kinds of auto posting to Facebook, to Craigslist, all kinds of other places. You can get a ton of business out of listings to leads, and it's not going to cost you much or any money. It's going to cost you $40 a month, and it's a great source. So and then there's all kinds of other free lead sources, where you only have to pay if you close the transaction, then you pay them a referral fee. Tons of sources like that. So start with that. Start with the things that don't cost you a bunch of money. Get them implemented. It's funny because I have one of my clients. He's a tier 5, right? So this guy does over 500 transactions a year, and he I'm having this exact same conversation with him. This is a big producer, but I'm telling him the same thing. I'm saying, don't go spend a bunch of money on leads right now. Let's do the free stuff first. Get that working. Start getting a transaction or two out of a month out of, or even every other month out of all these different sources. And all we got to worry about is following up and developing our pipeline and nurture that pipeline. And all of a sudden we're making a ton of money. And that's, I think, Josh, the other thing that I think people really forget about lead follow-up. If I tell somebody like, hey, Josh, I'm going to start sending you leads, and they're going to be, somewhere between 6 and 18 months out before they buy, maybe even 12 to 18 months out before they buy, but they're going to buy in the next 12 to 18 months. Would you want those leads?
Oh yeah.
Absolutely, because you're smart, right? So you get it, because you understand that 12 to 18 months from now, you're still going to need to freaking get some paychecks coming in. You're still going to need to feed your family 12 to 18 months from now. The problem is, I literally, almost daily, I had one today. I had a client tell me, well, I really don't want those leads because I need transactions today. It's so short-sighted. You have to build a pipeline. You have to fill that pipeline with both today leads and long-term leads.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more, man. It's so last year we did 653 home sales, right? It's of course, hitting our sphere of influence past clients, heavily. After 14 years in the business, we get a lot of business from that. But then it's two things: Facebook and open houses. Open houses are now business. Yeah, right. Like, dude, our open house method, like 1 out of 10, we're going to go out there and close if it's followed right. Right. Then for Facebook, the average client might be 6.7 months out from even starting to work with us. But we got things for the now business, and then always building up that pipe. Right. But we have a 1,000-day follow-up protocol that they all go on to, where we know, we just have the understanding. We're just hitting them on those points, and eventually it fucking becomes gold. You got to play the long game, man. Everybody's trying to sprint these marathons. You play the long game, man. Long game always wins.
Dude, totally. And that's the thing, is people are always thinking about today. And I get it. You guys got to feed your families today. I totally get that. The best thing you can do, if anybody watching this right now is struggling financially, start with this. Get a book called The Richest Man in Babylon. Read that freaking book, cover to cover. Richest Man in Babylon by George Clason. Second thing you need to do is stop spending so much freaking money. The best thing you can do to put more money in your wallet is stop spending so much. It's not about making more. And don't get me wrong, I'm all about making more money. And we'll teach you how to get rich and make all this money. That's all great. But by a penny that you save, it's funny because Benjamin Franklin first said, a penny saved is a penny earned, right? But what's really interesting is if I want to go buy $100 dinner, if I'm running a big team, I've got at Josh's level, for example, and he, at his profit margins, he's probably operating at about a 38% profit margin would be my hunch on your real estate team, or somewhere thereabouts. And so for you to go out and spend $100 on dinner, your company has to make $366. Now you start thinking about those numbers. Saving money makes you more than making money. Not spending that dollar is more efficient than going and getting another dollar that now you get taxed on, and now you've got to pay expenses on and all this other stuff.
Yeah, love it, dude. So I know you've got a hard stop in about 10 minutes with the call. And those that are watching and listening to this, wherever you're at, where Michael mentioned the download with his 31 lead tips, we're going to have a link right below. So right below this, you guys can click that, get it right away. So I want to make sure that you are aware of that. Dude, man, you're a dude that's obviously created so much massive success yourself, and not just in your real estate business and so many other ventures. With the coaching company that you have, and I know this isn't your intention here to sell anybody, but I'm such a big believer in not just self-development, but the right self-development. Right? I've wasted hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars because it took me like 8 years to just wake up and understand, that it's not about self-development, it's about the correct self-development. Yeah, right. Correct. Getting the right advice from the right people is critical. Right? I love doers. I hate theory, man. And you're a guy that's done it, that's built it, that's now giving all that information. And that's the ultimate hack. What people don't think about is time. You and I spent a decade, I'm not at decades yet, right? But trying to figure this shit out, right? And somebody can jump in your program and figure out what you did, took you 20 years, and they can figure it out in 6 months, right? Or whatever. It becomes that ultimate hack. So with that being said, man, how do people get in touch with you, book a call with you, talk about their business, and see if that's a fit for you? Because you guys are killing it, man.
Well, I would start with this. First of all, I agree 100%. So we have a core value at Club Wealth. Our two main core values. One of them you see up on the sign up there. It says no success in the world can compensate for failure in the home. Like that is our ultimate. That's our 100% our core value. Another one of our very important values is if you want to climb to the top of Mount Everest, you need a guide that's been to the top of Mount Everest before. Yeah. And if there's one thing that just kills me in this business, it's how much money people spend having people teach them stuff that have never freaking done it. And so for us, to become a coach with Club Wealth, we have over 60 coaches. And let me tell you, to become a coach with Club Wealth, you have to produce at a higher level than the people you're going to be coaching, period. Or you have to start off as a client, then you can be, eventually potentially become a coach. But so we break it up into tiers. If I'm in tier 1, I'm doing 0 to 25 transactions a year. Tier 2, I'm doing 25 to 75. Tier 3, I'm 75 to 150. Tier 4, I'm 150 to 250. Tier 5, 250 to 500. Tier 6 is 500 to 1,000. And tier 7 is 1,000 transactions and more a year. So no matter what tier I'm in, my coach is in the tier above me and has a coach in the tier above them. And let me tell you, this is mission critical because no matter where I am, I always have somebody that just came through what I went through and knows how to get beyond it. And I've got the support of everybody else. So it really matters. So in terms of getting hold of, we do what everybody does, a strategy session, right? All the different coaching companies out there do something called a strategy session. Here's the question I want you to ask yourselves. who's the person giving you the strategy session? Who's the person doing the call with you? Is it a salesperson trying to close you on coaching with the company? Or is it one of their actual coaches who's produced at a higher level than you that's capable of actually going in and looking at your business, figuring out what the holes are, telling you how to fill them, and then also helping you build a roadmap for the next 12 months so that by the end of the call, you literally have your next 12 months laid out. That's what a strategy session should be. That's how we do it. So if they want to reach out to us, just go to clubwealth.com. And there's a link right there. You can sign up for a free strategy session. I'll be honest though, we're usually about 4 weeks out because we have limited bandwidth because our coaches actually sell real estate too, right? So they have only a certain amount of time they can do the strategy sessions. So please be patient, and we do this once a year per agent. So if you've already done one with us, as long as it's been a year or more, we'd be happy to do another one for you.
Yeah, no, I love it, dude. And it's one of these things where, you talked about weight loss earlier, and, I used to be morbidly obese. I lost 118 pounds, kept it off now for over a decade. And when I was personal training and helping people, so all my businesses are around either real estate or health and fitness, right? So we've got some digital coaching, health and fitness products, supplement company and whatnot. And I've got a couple business partners in some of these ventures. And, they're just like, one's like an ex-pro bodybuilder, and one is like an star athlete, collegiate athlete, and dude, they've always been like, they're built like gods, and they've never struggled with weight loss. And sometimes they may not be able to understand, right, what that pain is to go through. Where like for me, right, knowing what the pains that the pains that really exist, like how Taco Bell was my jam. Right. Like I fucking love Taco Bell. So the pain of denying myself Taco Bell and allowing myself that instant gratification, that was a struggle, right. And you got to have somebody that can relate to those true struggles of where you're at in your life or your business. And like, for example, like most people are like, oh, you want to lose weight, go start working out and go to this. Dude, I every time I worked out, it would increase my appetite, right. Where then it would wreck my diet. So I had a diet for 6 months before I could even start working out and get control of my appetite, right? So just the standard advice, it's not a one size fits all. And the only way that somebody can truly help you is to know those pains that you've walked through and been through at each different level and phase, man. And I mean, you're actually the first dude I've ever heard that has that kind of a structure, which I think is so freaking awesome.
I'm not aware of any other companies that have it. And, it's interesting. By the way, bravo to you for your overcoming the morbid obesity, man. That is impressive. I got to tell you, I'm like you. Like I could not, like you, I don't know how you did that. I don't know how you said, I'm going to get on a diet and you just did it, right? Like that to me, like I love food. I don't understand people that have a brownie or a cookie. Like who does that? Like really? There's a plate of cookies for a reason. It's to be eaten. And that's what I do, right? I mean, I used to go get an extra large peach. I'd pound the whole thing. And so for you to be able to have that kind of willpower is awesome. But to your point, it really does make a difference that someone has been a mile in your shoes and figured out how to get to that next level in spite of the challenges that happen at your level. That's why it doesn't make any sense for a new agent to coach with somebody who's doing 1,000 transactions a year. They got different problems than you. I can't even remember what it was like to be a brand new agent. How am I supposed to coach somebody on that? We got coaches that were brand new last year that are killing it, right? That are doing 75, 100 transactions this year, but last year they were brand new. And so they're the right person to teach you how to go from 0 to 25. I'm not. I don't even speak that language anymore. And so you get so disconnected. And if you've never done it at all, how incredibly disconnected do you end up then?
Yeah, powerful stuff. And I know you got a hard stop here in about 3 minutes. So again, those that are watching and listening, right below this, we're going to have a link to Michael's website at Club Wealth. So you can check that out and book the strategy call if you want to book that. And it sounds to me like no matter what, you can't lose with that call. Yeah, right. Here's the plan for you. Now we can help guide you through this plan, but either way, here's the plan. You can figure it out on your own, right? But at least you have a plan to follow. So no matter what, sounds like a win to me.
They're not even going to tell you about coaching unless you ask them. Like there's no pitch unless you ask for it. You have to literally say, tell me about coaching, or they won't tell you.
Yep. Love it. So, and then also below, we're going to have the 31 lead gen sources, right? So check that out. And then we'll have links to all Michael's social media and whatever, so you can learn more from him, follow him, all that great stuff and fun stuff. So, and I know I end every podcast with this, but those that are watching and listening, information without implementation is truly the start of delusion. Information is no longer power. It's taking that information, taking massive action on it that creates the power in your world for you to create the life that you truly want. And Michael shared so many amazing damn piece of advice with you guys today. Don't just jump back into the busyness of your life. Reflect on this. Write down 2 or 3 points that you learned that you can just start implementing, taking action on, and go out there and start taking action. Truly appreciate all of you watching and listening. Michael, man, I know you're a busy dude, and you take the time out of your busy day to be here. It's been so much fun, man, and it's been a massive honor. I truly appreciate it.
And the honor is all mine. Seriously, thanks for having me on. And dude, we need to connect up after. We gotta stay in contact. We need to get together here soon. So
we'll make it happen, brother. All right, you guys, thank you so much for watching and listening. We'll see you next time.